It's Kevin. Today we're going to be talking about Vinyl, a free plugin from iZotope. This is really a must-have. I recommend everyone goes and gets it. It's a really cool effect that can work for a lot of different situations. It's really useful for electronic hip-hop producers, anything that can really get you a lo-fi sound. So it's useful in a lot of ways. It works well with drums, with keys, with pads, with strings, anything like that. It's really useful. And you can also put this on a master out, your final mix, right? So let's just start off with the piano sound, and we can see how that works. So another plugin that I highly recommend is Spitfire Labs. For this plugin, it works really well. There's a lot of very just exposed, natural sounding samples. So we're gonna use their soft piano, and I'm just gonna play a little line, no chords or anything, but just a nice little one note line, and we'll see how it works. Awesome. So first off, I just want to say that a lot of this stuff isn't very useful all the time, right? Certain situations you're going to want to use it, but let's just go over all the features at first. So first we have mechanical noise, which is really just background noise, right? Think of just like a fan in a room kind of thing. It's like a record player spinning, right? With no music. The next thing that we have would be electrical noise. This isn't as logical, I think. It's a little harsh, and it's like a buzz. Right. The next thing that we have is the dust and scratch. So the dust, when we're playing our line, the dust is going to overlay on top of that, and it's just like little clicks and pops. So let's listen to that. And you can change the amount too, right? We can change the amount and then also how loud it is. I think that could be heard, right? So it's just little clicks and pops, right? And then the scratch is way more obvious. It's way different. The scratch actually cuts into the sample. It turns it off, right? It turns off the sound, and it interrupts. Right, and we can change the amount, the duration, and what affects this as well is the RPM, rotates per minute, just like a vinyl record player, right? There's different speeds that for different size records. 33 rotates per minute is obviously slower than 78. So if it's up to 78, this will happen more frequently than compared to when it's at 33. The next thing that we have is the wear and the warp. So this is very useful for what we're trying to do here. So on this piano sound, the warp is almost like a chorus kind of filter where it changes the width of the sound, it speeds it up and slows it down, and takes it out of pitch very minutely. So let's listen to that. All the way up. Right? It's a really cool effect. This is really useful for longer pads or piano. Anything that has a long duration like this is really good. So down here we have 4 different types of, I guess, filters, wavelengths, and these two are pretty useful for the longer, say like a string patch or a pad, and these are really good for anything that's very percussive and shorter. So yeah, I'm gonna speed through them real quick. It might be hard to tell, but let's just go through them. I'm gonna put it all the way up to 100%. Right? So that's very useful. The next thing we have is wear. Wear is basically like a filter, right? When something gets older, the filter is more low end, right? There's not as much high frequencies. So that's basically what they did here. The higher up it is, the more, the lower frequencies that are registering, they cut out the high frequencies. And also there's some distortion, right? Think of like a worn record. Everything's not going to be as clear. There's going to be some missing information, basically. That's what this is. And I'm not really hearing too much here, but it's definitely way more heard on, say, a master for a mix or a drum, something with a lot of different frequencies. So we'll revisit this later. The last thing I want to talk about is these down here. Not too much to talk about. The year is just different sets of basically EQ. They do different filters. Basically, the older it gets, the more distortion or old time it sounds, right? Important to note, when you go to 1950 and 1930, it sends out as mono, right? So all the other ones are in stereo, except the bottom two convert it to mono, right? So this will be also useful. You'll hear it a lot more later on when we do more in a bigger mix, right? And the last thing is these bypass mono stereo, right? Very straightforward. Do you want it in mono, stereo, or we could just bypass the plugin completely. You can also just do that right here in Logic. So I'm going to go and find some samples and put in a little drum track, and we're going to make a little mini composition. Cool, so I just put in some more stuff. I got this cool little loop from a guitar. I put a little pad to it. Nothing much, and then a drum track. Nothing too crazy. We're not trying to show off here, we're just trying to get through the plugin. So kick, snare, hi-hat, that's all we got right now. Very bare bones. So I'm trying to show you how you can do a lot with just a little. So let's first off just see what happens when we put vinyl on our master, our stereo out. Let's throw on vinyl, and let's just hear it. Let's mess around with some settings, and I'll talk through it as I do it. So right now nothing's happening. So here we're going to mess around with the year. Yeah, so I like 1980. As you can hear, the lower we go, the more distorted the kick becomes. So it might be a good idea to bypass the drum track with this setting, right? And maybe do a separate one on that one. But yeah, I like how it's sounding. So maybe let's mess around with the wear, some of the warp depth, some stuff like that. You can hear it's almost like a low pass filter. Yeah, a lot of the high frequencies get cut off. That's basically all it is, that and a little bit of distortion. You can hear it a lot in the kick drum. And then maybe some warp depth. So we just made a lo-fi track with a piano, guitar loop, pad, and a straight drum track. And all we did was add a little bit of the vinyl magic, and it sounds like it's from 30 years ago, right? Yeah, so it's super simple to use. You really can't mess up. I will say try not to do too much, right? Keep it simple. You can see how low I have this. It's at 15, 25%, and that's plenty, right? If you go too much more, it'll be way too much. This is supposed to kind of be subtle and more like a feeling rather than being heard. As you can see, I'm not too much of a fan of the dust and scratch, so as well as the noises. I will say the mechanical noise is pretty useful if you have a super soft part of your track, or for the intro, outro. It's really cool to have some kind of sound happening. instead of just blank silence, like just nothing, digital silence. You need to have something, right? Whether it's a very soft sound or just replace it with this. It's a really cool effect. So let's go back in and see what we can do individually with each type of instrument. So let's start with the drums. So when we put it on our master, it was a little too much. It was a little too overbearing for the drum's sake. So let's go a little bit lighter. Let's just start. I think it'd be cool to have some mechanical noise here, just very subtly in the background. As you can see on the channel, we're hitting like -50, -45 dBs, which is barely audible. So yeah, we can also maybe add a little bit of wear, and it might be a cool idea to add some dust because it's almost percussive in a way. Some clicks. Yeah, let's listen to it. So you can see just those little small details. I'm going to switch the plugin on and off. I'm going to bypass it basically. And let's listen to the difference. It's very subtle, but super effective. Right? And that as our bass line for our track and have everything above it. And that can be, some more effects, reverb, delay, as well as more vinyl, right? That could be super effective. I would advise keeping the drums pretty simple. Don't add too much effects to it, and it'll go pretty far in your mix. So let's show a way how we can combine two channels and put the same effect on both of them. So we already have our piano, which has its own setting for vinyl, and we have our drums, which is the one we just made. It has its own setting. So say we want this pad and that guitar loop to have the same exact setting. What we can do very easily is just send them to a bus. So let's just pick anyone that's open works. So we'll just go with bus 1. Make sure you send it, and then we'll do it to the other one. So in Logic, it's super important. We have it sent to our bus. So now what we're going to do is we're going to mute the original channel, right? So you can either just pull it all the way down, or we can just come here and just say no output, right? Don't worry, it's coming through the bus. So both the pad and the guitar are now coming through our aux 1 or bus 1 channel. So this is where we added vinyl, right? The bus channel, not the original. It's going to save us a lot of time, and it's going to be both affecting the guitar and the pad. So let's check it out. In order for this to happen, we got to open it up through our bus. Yeah, this is a really cool sound. So what I did here is I put a ton of warp depth on it, and I also messed around with the RPM because the rotates per minute affects how fast the warp is happening. Does that make sense? Pretend the warp is on a record. It's spinning faster, the warp is going to move faster, right? So I have it set to 33 rotates per minute because it's kind of like a slower song, so I like the feeling a lot better. Didn't add any dust or scratch, didn't really feel a reason to, and got a good bit of wear, which, as we talked about, cuts off a lot of the higher frequencies. So yeah, I'm really liking how it's sounding. Let's listen to the whole thing. So as you can see, that's a really awesome sound, and we didn't even mix and master yet, right? This is just the bare bones, and it's already sounding really good. So yeah, this is just a little bit of what this plugin can do. It's extremely useful in so many different occasions, so many different genres, so many different instruments that there's really no reason not to have it. It's free. I'll have a link in the description to where to get it. It's just iZotope's website. They have a lot of other good products too. So yeah, if you have any questions, just hit up the comments and I'll try and answer them all. And yeah, thanks for watching, and take it easy.